he's doing great for himself, you know.
Live,
Hey, we're here.
Yeah.
See, this is how professional. This is just how professional we are, and this is how you know this is not pre-recorded. And this is how you know. Anyway, g'day fuckers. How are we? Welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Tony Jack the Bear, Mance with you in the chair. Supposed to be taking time off. Yes, I know. I said a few days ago on Facebook that I'm under strict instructions to take a fortnight off, and I will. But there was no fucking way known I was not going to have my guest, Nathan Brenner.
Hi, how are you going?
G'day, mate.
You're going to have a break. Where are you going?
Mental health break, to be honest, mate. Just fucking take time off and.
That's how it's really important in the industry. We have very few people, in terms of managers or artists, in terms of the stresses and the frustrations all artists have in terms of creative, maybe writer's blocks or what have you.
Yeah.
It's really important to find help.
Yeah.
To have a break, to have a bit of a holiday.
Yeah. And, so I've just had to, again, I mean, this isn't meant to be a confession or such, but no.
Why not?
No, just dealing with my own shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a so-called inspirational speaker, and I've just realised, you know what, there's stuff I've still got to deal with myself to speak my truth, okay?
Yeah.
So there's no point in me going out there and, again, not claiming to be holier than thou perfect, but if you're going to go out there and you're going to speak shit to people, you got to be able to practice that, or you got to dealt with that sort of stuff and go through your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
You got to sit through your own shit and deal with it, and so that when you sit up and talk to people about stuff, you can talk about it with some authenticity from a real place. So people feel it. It's like you can't bullshit a Nathan Brenner, as hard as you fucking may want to try. In my experience, as much as I think at times I can fucking hoodwink people, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't fucking work. And so
you still give it a go.
Well, I've given it a go, absolutely.
But you would give it a go.
Absolutely, without doubt. And then you fall flat on your ass, and then you just go, and people come up to you and say, mate, I think you really need to fucking check yourself.
I know, but as a producer, in many ways, you're supposed to graft yourself onto.
Listen, I don't qualify to be a producer. I am an alleged master engineer, or as I used to say back in the day, glorified tape copy boy. But anyway, but as someone that works at the production, all right, let's just.
So you graft yourself onto the creative spine of people who are talented.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, and to a certain extent to give them the benefit of your knowledge, you do have to influence them. You do have to try and maybe turn them into that a certain thing should be a certain way for their own benefit. So it's not bullshitting. It's sort of like, embellishing things in order for them to see the value of their creativity in a different light.
Yeah, perhaps. But I don't know. Would Howie Weinstein be able to talk about being a great champion of women's rights? I'm not saying that my stuff
you can't separate. People are complex. You can't separate one from the other, and certainly he, is an odious, a terrible human being. At the same time,
is he a terrible human being, or are his acts or alleged acts terrible? I'm not trying to be semantics here, but I'm a great believer there aren't terrible people, but they can do terrible things.
He makes certain people that we know who are heinous look like they are angels.
Yeah,
he's excessive, and it's not just that. He's he's very brutal to people, and he throws his power around, and he's whether it's financial or other sort of abuses, and that's the interesting thing is no one's actually look at at his finances and how he finances the films and where the money goes and what happened with the German tax-free stuff. A lot of the things they should look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just one element of his narcissism of dominance and abuse. It goes across the board with him.
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, since that, we've had the Me Too hashtag, and obviously it's flooded the internet. And I honestly don't think there is a woman, let's just say, of age, an adult woman or a late teen, that cannot have that hashtag, put that hashtag out, But I guess there is a line between. I guess are we talking about someone who is looking to have a bit of fun, to sow their oats, so to speak, or are we talking about actual, real sexual abuse, real heinous, premeditated shit?
It is premeditated. It's no different from what happened in the whole term casting couch.
Yeah.
You know, what it existed before Harvey, and that's no excuse for what he's done. It's just that it doesn't end. It's like saying, well, you know, but in Australia, in the music industry, you know, I know about four senior men who would probably fall into that category, but probably light. But there's no such thing as light because an abuse is an abuse. Yeah. Okay? Who would use their power to influence people.
Yeah. Well, I've never been in a position like that where I had that much power to be able to be tested. I'd like to think that I wouldn't. However, it does make me wonder though, mate, like how rampant is it? Is this Weinstein thing now going to start an avalanche of claims, be them real or not real? Or do you think that this
have it out. Let it all out. It should come out. And whether it's a judge or whether it's a policeman or whether it's a corporate executive or someone at Channel 7, a senior executive at Channel 7 or Channel 9, if it happens, stamp the damn thing out and do it now. Why not now? What before Weinstein, why wasn't it done then? So as long as we've got this happening, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's get it over and done with and just do it and get some proper rules out there.
Is it, do you think, part of the culture? Or, like, for example, today I was watching on a Joe Rogan podcast an excerpt of it where they were showing, well, again, if we had assumed that, again, these days, how do we know how accurate the news or information that we actually receive is? But apparently this is according to TMZ, so again, I don't know how accurate, but apparently, according to this, this thing, that there were elements in the contract that it was like, we know this is going to happen. So for example, one indiscretion, a $250,000 punitive damage to the company. The second one was $500,000. Third one was $750,000, and then from a fourth indiscretion, so on, $1 million for each one. So it was almost like they were bundling this into a contract, like expecting this was going to happen, and they were going to put things in place that knowing, would that imply that they're complicit in this shit?
There's legal knowing, that is factual representation. And, like I told you something that I know, but it's hearsay. So you haven't seen the document, but I've told you about the document. Still, I'm telling you, it isn't the fact of the document. I might be interpreting the document. It's like this thing with 20th Century Fox tonight, I think it is, about, did they or did they not know that this Roger Ailes guy got into trouble and had to do a private settlement for $32 million with a woman because of what he did and what he said, and they knew nothing about it. You would not know about a settlement of $32 million because you're 20th Century Fox. Mr. Murdoch wouldn't know. Well, he's saying they didn't know.
Wow.
Is that likely? On the scale of Murdoch and likely and not unlikely, what does that pass the pub test, as we call it?
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing that always fascinated me about things like conspiracy theories, where I understand, as is the micro, so is the macro, and your local cricket club is going to have a hierarchy where the buck stops somewhere, and on a global sense, there's going to be somewhere where it kind of ends. Now, whether it is Lord Jacob Rothschild and his cronies or a select group of people or Bilderberg or whatever, but still, how can all these conspiracies be completely held under wraps? I mean, that someone at some point, somewhere, is going to either leak information. So, I believe that there are some conspiracies have been going on since the dawn of time.
Of course.
But in terms of, whoever is actually running the planet, if you will. I mean, I don't waste too much time with it, but it does fascinate me, the whole notion of, who is actually fucking running this clusterfuck.
That's what I was going to say. Jinx. Exactly the same word. Exactly the same word. And it's, that's God. It's just like an accidental thing. We're very complex. It's very difficult. And we're way off the reservation when it comes to music.
Yeah.
You and I. Just right now, we're talking about philosophy in the world.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating shit.
But how does it affect women in the music industry? Women in the music industry, do they have it tougher than men? Do they suffer from the same thing? I think they do.
I think without doubt. And it's interesting. One of again, I don't claim to be a poster boy for women's rights, but the one of the things that I am trying to achieve in part of the podcast, and there's several things I'm trying to achieve through this avenue, is to try and promote more of the women that are doing well, because it's not just it's not just being a PA and getting coffee and looking good and and doing admin. We've got some really great women who who working in engineering and production, and as well as artists and stuff like that. And so
absolutely.
and yet I think a lot of women, I mean, okay, sure, we can say women, they go through life, they may choose to have a family, which takes them out of the industry for a while, and then it's probably a little bit hard to get back in. But I still think that, for a lot of women, and I mentor a few, is that there is a feeling that there's a glass ceiling set before they even start, and I think the assumption is unless they are really, really dedicated, or they're really well connected, or what have you, that the game is set up in a way where they won't get to do what they really, really want to do, and so they probably start compromising before they even begin.
I think in terms of the business side of the music, when you look at record companies and things like that, I mean, way, way, way behind when it comes to equal rights.
Yeah.
And, women are, in my personal belief, subjugated. As long as they're in the publicity department, no problem. International, no problem.
Yeah.
Sales, no problem. But when it comes to the upper echelon, legal affairs, no problem. When it comes to the upper echelon, the decision making, very few. In fact, I think you can only count, the finger of one hand of how many women have run record companies in Australia. How many people have run radio stations in Australia? These icons, these very important thing.
Yeah.
Very important thing. Taste, fashion. How many women have been up there? In terms of, I think, where we live, your and my life, we have a greater respect. And I don't even differentiate. Why even differentiate at all? You're either good or you're not good for the job.
Yeah.
That's all. That's my thing.
Kirsty Rivers from Creative Victoria, who I have I've just recently met in recent times. I have enormous respect for. She's a really, really well accomplished lady in my eyes. Talks about the idea of a quota. What's your thoughts on having a quota system of when it comes to that?
There's an airplay quota system for instance, in Canada.
CanCon, yes.
Where you have to have a certain percentage of Canadian music, but the problem is that they had that, and then it turned out that Celine Dion had 90% of that quota. So I mean, what quotas are important when you don't have equality of that variety. In her previous position, which was in terms of APRA, that's an interesting comment for her to make. Very interesting comment for her to make, considering the nature and makeup of the people who run the place. And I would certainly say, in my personal opinion, there are certain, in those collection societies, and as I said, in the mainstream industry, there are glass ceilings for women that ought not to exist at all, but they do.
Okay.
Imposed by men.
Yeah, okay. So like with a lot of things, we're very good at identifying issues and problems and what they are and how they impact things. So we're aware of, okay, we have an issue where we have a severe underrepresentation of women in higher decision-making positions, within labels, radio stations, entertainment industry in general. Okay, so we're aware of that. It's been well documented. It's been well discussed and debated. But like with anything else that we talk about when we're looking at a problem, an issue, or challenge, my interest is, okay, we know about this shit, and it's been spoken ad nauseum, and rightly so. It needs to be. There's nothing wrong with highlighting it. But my interest is, what do we do about it? Like, what the fuck do we do? Or at least, what are the things at least we can try, as opposed to just pointing at the issue and shining the light on it, as important as it is. But what do we do? So, you're a bloke that's been around. You're pretty well read and worldly. Like, what would you think? I mean, what would be something that you would suggest as an idea? If the idea of a quota is something that
a quota, just because you have to fill 6 positions and some person isn't up to that, being in that position, why put them in there just because of the nature of the colour of their skin or their sex or how high they are, how tall they are, or what colour their eyes are? It's really, it's not. It's more of a philosophy and a mindset of males who would rather have, let's say, okay, well, there's a guy who used to be the sales guy from record company A, and he's a bit long in the tooth, so let's just put him on a board of this, that, or the other, and he's not particularly good for it, but he'll sit there and do what he's told. That sort of like unwritten law of the male unwritten law. That has to be exposed. That has to, and when you actually have a look, if you actually do a little dot line between where people used to work and where they're working now and who influenced now they got there, you'll be able to see it all.
Right.
And women are excluded, totally excluded from that male mateship stuff that is just as bad as a quota. It should be done on the quality of the person.
Yeah.
One would think, but that's a naive principle apparently.
Yeah.
But you've got to try and push for that.
Yeah.
Push for that because it actually creates a greater diversity of talent and ability and competition in the very area where we need as a country to be competitive.
Yeah.
Because we're on a global scale. When you go to Europe, for instance, in the organisation that I'm on, the executive of the International Music Managers Forum, there's about of the 50 countries, I would say at least 10 have women as representatives from their country on our council board.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic to have their input. Sometimes it's quite challenging.
Yeah.
Because they don't care. They'll say what they think.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they, but they're a lot more open, a lot more collegial. It's much more interesting.
Yeah.
And I've got no problem. But as I said, I think we're a little bit structured to aid the male culture. But I think that's also part of the fact that we're a very, very young country.
Yeah. Tommy, that's actually, now that you've mentioned this about the whole European Managers Forum, and we've known each other for a long time. This is the first time we've actually met in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've dealt with each other over the years in various...
On the phone. We're phone people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's cool. And in fact, that's what I love. Our last conversation was like, mate, this is like the fucking podcast. This is like, let's just shut the fuck up and let them till we go on. But, so we got, by the way, if you've got any questions, we're going to have a question come out real soon. But if you've got any questions for Nathan, please drop them in the live chat, and we will do our best to answer them as best as possible. But the main, as I said to you before, the main reason you're here. Actually, let's just get this question while it is. Okay, so Mick Rowe is a great fan of the podcast.
Hi, Mick.
Big shout out, Mick. Who is Australia's benchmark female musical influencer? I mentioned at the moment.
In what field of music? I mean, you've got foreign, you've got domestic, you've got you've got the Ray Harvey living ends man, you've got management, you've got a whole. There are other female managers that you've got a whole range of people in the honeycomb of the industry.
All right, so can we be just general in terms of let's just talk in terms of influencers or decision makers, maybe.
That's a hard one. What do you think? I'm really.
Well, I think it's me. Catherine Harrity is a person who I have a lot of respect for. I think she's the real fucking deal and can mix it with anyone. I want to get on the podcast. I've been hassling her, but as I say, I will be as persistent as she is elusive. Yep. Not that she's eluding me, but again, Catherine Harrity, for example, is the example of the kind of woman who I want to get on the podcast to talk about her journey and prove that women can get in there, mix it with the men, and do great things. I mean, she's written her fucking chapter as far as I'm concerned. But
I think she has too. As I said, Ray, to me, because I knew her when she started, when she was very young. Yeah. Very, very young, was Ray Harvey. Yeah. And she has a singular vision. She is strong. She's also very diplomatic, and she has a lot of guile to her. She's very smart. Yeah. And she also cares for animals. She's got a big heart. Yeah. And she's very protective of her band. Very protective. And she's done the best possible job. When you think about bands, Living End, they're probably the last one, along with Powderfinger, one of the last iconic bands we've had for a long time. Yeah. Who've
I think Airborne are doing pretty well at the moment, but their success seems to be more. I mean, unlike Powderfinger and Living End, who. Airborne do really well locally here as well, but look what they're doing overseas. I mean, I've always found it fascinating how we still, when I was growing up, the whole idea of us having this inferiority complex to the Americans and the English I could kind of understand that. And I think over time, I think we hold our own pound for pound in just about any fucking part of industry, whether players, producers, engineers, DJs, managers, whatnot. But there's still that thing here that we seem to, and I'm speaking radio, okay? I'm being real specific about radio. That radio will not support local music unless there is success overseas. But look what's happening with Airborne, but they just can't get arrested here, and that to me is really quite fascinating.
Well, music on radio is an endangered species and has been for the last few years, going down, 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 down. People would rather listen to a funny joke or talk about, that they had diarrhea. Mick Malloy having diarrhea is far more interesting than the best talent we have in this country.
Yeah.
So that's far more interesting.
Yeah.
Eddie Maguire, far more interesting than any music talent we have in this country. Yeah. So when you talk about music, it's not the same wavelength as in the 80s where people loved music. It was music all the time.
Yeah.
We had lots of band and it was very tethered to the live industry. Now it's almost this ancillary thing that works on the outskirts of mainstream radio.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real support.
Yeah. I think I really saw the introduction of that in the early 90s when being a Triple M, I think I sort of came on post the sort of heyday of the 80s, and this is when we saw more. It was about footy players, soapy stars, sports identities.
Ratings.
They
need ratings, so therefore they have to gravitate. No, that's not right. Gravitate, that's a good word. Gravitate towards the populist icons that exist, whether it's last night's TV show or the fact that they're tied in commercially with Idol or The Voice, or they're automatically going to get that person, that 5-minute wonder who will never do anything again, unfortunately for them.
Yeah.
Now, where is Judah? Now, what is Judah doing now? Is he planning a festival hall tour? Or... Exactly right. He was here today, gone. That's because music today, as opposed to, let's say, Mark Hunter and Dragon, is a perennial person, charisma, Michael Hutchins. Today, these people come and go. They're just disposable. So why should anyone take any notice of them?
Do you think that's because artist development isn't what it used to be? Like I remember once listening.
There is no what artist. You're assuming that there is artist development. If I'm a record company and I can get 3 million people to watch an artist on TV and vote and hopefully vote for them by actually paying me to vote through paying for phone calls and texts. Yeah. What do I actually have to use my brain for when the Australian public will tell me exactly what they want? They'll buy 500,000 downloads or something, and I can make a lot of money. And then I'll throw the artist out, and it'll be next season we'll have. So it's just this constant that they've moved away from developing career. In fact, tell me one major record company that's developed an artist over a period of 7 years.
I can't. But this is
why is that?
That's a good question.
That's a failure. That's a complete and absolute failure of artist relation and record company philosophy. They don't like to discover anything original. They'd rather have it come through the door, get seen by lots of people on TV, pump a lot of money into it, and then throw it away.
But, I remember a time when A&R, for example, was about finding bands and getting on the ground level and development and understanding everything, a lot about the record making process. I remember once listening to Glenn Shorrock talking about their deal with Capitol, and Capitol Records signed them, if I recall correctly, a 7-album deal, and the idea behind that was they went in with this attitude of, you know what, we're going to stick with these guys at least until 4 albums because we feel it's going to take at least 4 albums before they're going to break, right? So already, they were going to commit regardless to at least 4 albums. Who does that now?
Well, actually, all the record companies want 10 albums. So, and they'll drop you after the second. So it doesn't matter. They'll always want you for your complete life and hopefully the life of your children. They'll want you for as long as possible to control you as much as possible. And that's what they want. But the option to continue with you as an artist is not yours. Yeah. It's theirs. Yeah. So whether it's 2 years or 4 years or 8 years, they want you for as long as possible.
Tell me if it's for a young...
with Little River Band, they saw a paucity in the market. Okay, and the paucity in the market was just after Hotel California, right?
Yeah.
The entire industry is looking for a band which has got good melodies,
harmonies,
close cut harmonies, and has got a West Coast sound.
Yeah.
And who's that?
LRB.
Yeah. And they've already got hits in an English-speaking market, right? Plus, they're great writers.
Yeah.
Wheatley has done, their manager, Glenn Wheatley, and they've done the college circuit. They've actually built up stuff. They've done the hard yards. They're a reasonable bet. They don't need an American manager. They can do it. They do what they're told. They don't answer back. They're easily manipulated, and they tour like anything. And so, of course, Capital, EMI Capital would go for them.
Yeah.
So it's an also.
Yeah.
They wanted bands like that. It's like, Kylie, where's your Kylie? Sade, where's my Sade?
Yeah.
Everybody, it's a fashion industry. So if one label has one style, the other label wants a variation of that one style.
Yeah. What do you reckon today, right? For young artists or aspiring artists, hang on, here's a question from Ben. Do you see any way for social media to replace radio as the main objective for musicians? That's a good question, actually.
So the two separate. Well, radio. What is radio? Are you talking about the radio that is iTunes radio?
No, terrestrial radio.
Well, is Spotify radio? What is defined? Is it playing music to people that they want to hear? Is that what radio does? Because that's what Spotify does.
But radio is programmed by, again, I know a selector or some machine assuming what they think people want to hear. Whereas, don't you have some control over Spotify? Don't you have your playlist? Don't you have some? Again, I don't.
You'd like to think.
Okay, well, enlighten me, because I don't use streaming services.
There's a whole range of things going on with Spotify. It's funny. I watched the Molly I was on the plane. There was the Molly thing that I had to watch on the way back to Australia, and there's a part in it where, in the middle of the ABC cafeteria, a record company person gives him some money, and he says, "No, I will not be bribed. How dare you?" Are you saying that payola happened everywhere in the world but not in Australia? Is that what we're being told?
Yeah.
Are you saying that Spotify, the way that's run, who owns it, what happens, who dictates what? That if you like artist A, that suddenly you will hear artist B that is from a major record company that's got equity. I'm saying that there is a possibility that it would be maybe the case that payola has become almost part of the structure.
Is it just like the white elephant in the room?
It always was. Chop, chop, chop. It always was the white elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that it's actually disappeared. And the idea that it never happened in Australia. So, yeah, but as far as, things like Facebook and social media, it certainly has affected and built tribes of society that bypass radio and exchange things amongst themselves. Right. So how important is radio to begin with?
Well, I think once upon a time it was imperative, I think, for a band to be successful. Certainly, even today, look at what's happening now with artists. There's so much importance on Triple J. I did a video where I just lost my shit about this whole thing, where bands are like going, they're asking me, who is probably the worst fucking person to predict a hit of all the shit I've worked on the years. It's only been 3 or 4 times where I worked on something and I said, you know what, this might fucking do something, and it did, and all the other shit went. So I'm the worst person to ask, but I get asked all the time, what do you reckon? Do you reckon Triple J will like this? And there's so many bands who put so much importance and emphasis on the idea of getting airplay on Triple J, particularly on a high rotation, that they feel that is going to be the stepping stone that's going to give them the credibility, exposure to be able to.
And the thing is that's actually, for Triple J, irrelevant. The song itself is irrelevant. And the funny thing about the last question is that Triple J, one of the things that they'll say to you is, how many likes and how many fans have you got on your Facebook site? Because if you haven't got enough, in our personal opinion, if you haven't got enough, we're not going to play you because you haven't got followers. And the old school thing of, you know what, that song sounds fantastic and I'm going to play it on the radio, they're too lazy. They'd rather say, and the fact is you can buy likes on Facebook,
of course.
So that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And there's payola there.
Yeah.
So therefore, or corruption of the system. Yeah. So therefore, to ask the question, the Triple J says, unless you've got a substantial amount of people following you, we're not interested in you, is absolute rubbish.
Right.
And I'm highly critical of that thing. And this Mick says, are you excited about the future of Australian music? Yes, I am. yes, I am so excited because we have the best talent in this country. But what the mistake that we're talking about, or that you talked about, is the obsession with England and America, the obsession with England and America, as if nothing else exists.
Yeah. And this is this thing that I shared, and again, the main reason why you are here. I mean, we're covering so many topics, and it's wonderful. But I really wanted you to give exposure and let people know more about this initiative of yours, because when you threw it up, you're talking about the Management Forum and what you're trying to achieve by helping put bands on the map, in a market that is pretty much untapped or overlooked. Here is fertile ground, great opportunity. So I'm really keen for you to tell me how this all came about, what inspired it, how it works, and and how people can get involved.
We've been given the opportunity. That's the International Music Managers Forum, which is IMMF.
Tom, you'll be able to put the shit up online, please.
IMMF.com. Just check it out. Have a look at it. And we were asked by the European Commission. We're going to help fund develop this app, and the app it's your website, but it also sells things, and you can sell tickets, and you can also raise money on it, and then we're going to also make it a profile for European magazines. Can access. You can also put in things like your stage plan. You can put in your rider. You can put in your contract, so that if a promoter rings up, you can instantly just give them a link, and they're off there. It actually, all the things that you use 3 or 4 websites for, this is all in one.
Yeah.
And so the people who don't have the time to deal with that can consider. You don't have to. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But that's what we did. So, and we got a lot of people from all over the world. Now, they want to grow that and then maybe form communities or tribes, as I was saying. Yeah. That if there's one genre of music here, let's say a band is playing a particular genre of music, and there's another one over in Belgium.
Yeah.
And then you can get in touch with those people and go, hey, where are you touring? Can we go and support you on your tour?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, what's the most important market in the world? The most important market in the world are the people who love you and you play to. Yeah. The people who pay for your records or pay for your merchandise, pay for your music, come and see you live. That's the most important. Does it matter whether it's in Newcastle? Does it matter whether it's in Wonthaggi? Does it matter whether it's in Cape Esperance? Does it matter whether it's in Estonia? It doesn't.
Yeah.
So when this obsession about America and no one even talks about Canada, but America and England because they speak English. Well, why is your music? Okay, so an example, right? Yeah. The Japanese that want to join the IMMF, right? And I'm speaking to one of the head of the music managers organisations there, and that organisation in Japan is different. They control it all. The managers are the record companies, they're the publishers, they're the TV people. They've got equity in the radio. It's vertically integrated. It's a little bit, perhaps a bit too much control. Yeah. The artist is a little bit too much manipulated. Nevertheless, and they're going, we've been trying for many years to try and crack the English and American market. And I'm going, you're wasting your time. Why don't you actually go to Latvia and Estonia and do something, get a beachhead there? And they go, well, what do we do? And I'm going, well, why don't, even though they're not big, a market is a market.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be expecting it. Plus, why don't you actually use what Japan is? Go there with your, like an exhibition of manga cartoons, maybe a festival of food, and also do a festival of contemporary music. In other words, it's the culture of your country.
Yeah.
It's not just music, and use it as a holistic thing, as a complete thing, and then also involve the Department of Trade. In other words, if you can't do it yourself, just by yourself in just that singular way, why don't you actually make it about your country? Why don't we make it about Australia?
Yeah.
What Australia represents.
Yeah. Well, for a little while we had a pretty good go in the 80s when In Excess Kick was really firing and Hogan was firing, and and Australia really kind of, became like that flavour of the month that kind of never left the taste buds. But what you're saying, though, I think is right in terms of the international. I mean, Mark Opitz was telling me how, Turkey, of all fucking countries, I mean, he would be flying to Turkey and work with these bands who, massive fucking bands in Turkey, and be taken care of. I mean, again, nothing we hear about over here. But again, there are opportunities, but people don't think about it because, like I said, this obsession.
Well, it's like, we talk about America and you go to, everyone has to go to, South by Southwest, jerk off that is. Los Angeles and New York. How many bands have broken out of South by Southwest? Give me the name of 3. Thank you. Thank you very much. Exactly. So it's all about, and then it's New York and Los Angeles. But as you say, there's a band that just works Texas and the 3 states that neighbour it, and they make $2 million a year, and you never heard of them.
Yeah.
There's a band that's bigger than and better than the Beatles. They worked in South America. They spoke Spanish and sang in Spanish, and no one ever heard of them.
Yeah.
Because it was a different language. Yeah. Because it's a different place.
Yeah.
So it's all relative. It's all relative. But the obsession that Australians have with America because of their culture and The Simpsons and The Sopranos and Stephen King and Shaggy, their culture. America's biggest export is not guns or butter or whatever it is, copyright.
Yeah.
Our copyright in our country is all the way down there because the government doesn't get it.
Yeah.
They don't understand. When you live overseas, you see how people regard Australia as being, oh, what an exotic place. Yeah. What a fantastic, weird place.
Yeah.
Sell that.
Yeah.
So if you try and be like an American artist, if you try and sing like an independent female who's got, navel gazing, well, they've got 1 million of those.
Yeah.
The films that have worked for us are ones that are not like American films. Mad Max is, and what it became, arguably, probably the best action film in the last 2 years in terms of, forget the dialogue, but the real action film. That's like the peak. We can do that stuff.
Yeah. The one thing about Australia I've always loved and particularly makes me proud, of our country is that we're probably one of the most not only hardworking, we're known for hardworking, but also probably the most resourceful because so many things that have gone really well overseas usually have been, on a shoestring budget or on paper really shouldn't have made it. But just through the resourcefulness of the people and the talent pool,
Men at Work, okay?
Yeah.
The album cost, how much did the album cost?
$10,000.
$43,000 Australian, okay? Because they had Peter McCann, $43,000. They couldn't get released overseas because the Americans and the English, no one cared. They gave it. They actually in most recording contracts they sign you for the world, but they've got 6 months to release you overseas, and if they don't, then they farm it out to other companies, like not Sony or Columbia or whatever. They give it to A&M or they give it to Atlantic, they give it to Warner Bros, whoever, and then they have the opportunities, those A&R people, to go, oh, we'll have it if you not one, none of them wanted to do it. Yeah. So you go, well, how do you confront that? Yeah. And you just do. You just try and make it happen somewhere. Get a foothold, and I see how do artists start to establish themselves in these remote markets. Yeah. Music, being a musician is really hard. It's really, 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 really hard.
When hasn't it been hard? It's always been hard.
But all these things require music itself is mathematical. Yeah. Okay, all the things here, they've all got numbers on every little thing, even zeros and ones.
Yeah.
It's all there. Everywhere there's a number. It's all scientific. Yeah. The study or how to break a market or even how to do a gig or how to plan for a gig is a science. It is a science. You have to study
formula.
The system.
You think there's a formula?
There are formulas you can try. I mean, here's a formula. Okay, you're going to do a gig. Are you not going to market it? That's part of the formula. So you've got to do this. There's got to be stuff. Yeah. So let's start with the stuff. How do you establish yourself in these remote markets? How do you establish? You're going to go to Albury. Well, what do you do? Well, wouldn't you find out? Well, let's see. Is there a campus in Albury?
I'm not sure.
You find out. Is there an independent or an alternate or a college radio station in Albury?
Don't think
I don't know. Who knows? Let's find out. Is there a community group, a youth group in Albury? Yeah. Is there what are the venues in Albury and what sort of music they play? Yeah. All of this is analytics. So you analyse, and the same thing you would do with these what you consider to be remote markets. As soon as it becomes your market, it's no longer remote.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you've got to save, and you've got to go there.
So do your homework.
Do your homework, exactly right. And you might be able to do exchanges. You might be able to, because of social networking, which we were talking before, you might be able to find, okay, well, we are this like folk rock band. Yeah. Let's look at the folk rock band in Latvia or Estonia. Let's go and support them. And maybe when they can come out to Australia and they can support us. Yeah. In other words, if it is going to be a community, what limits the community? What limits the community is the mindset you have of our boundaries. Yeah. And there's no such thing. There is no such
Well,
thing.
especially now it's a global market, so there is no boundary.
Yeah, but you got to get there. So the thing about it is live, unless holograms, which cost will cost. We won't be able to, not even with the NBN, we'll be able to have me playing in Estonia or anyone as a hologram, because the technology here is just disgusting. And I'll give you something else. In order this app that I was talking about, they'll only take WAV files.
Oh, okay.
Because they're about quality.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Although people say, "What's the difference?" No one can tell very much. It's much, whatever. Mm. But they've got this thing that they think WAV is better, and arguably it's better. So they're asking the Australian acts, the 20 or 30 that have already joined, to send WAV files. Now, one WAV file to send to them in Spain, 30 minutes upload.
Yeah. Oh no, it's pretty fucked.
It is just, how do we want to compete?
Yeah. Well, that's the government, the NBN, and that's a whole other story.
Sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't be sorry. I agree. Well, the government's decisions suck anyway.
Yeah, well, excuse me, and what do they want to do? Cut the national broadcaster, don't fund artists, blah, all the rest of it. Yeah. Anyway, so...
Do you think that might change if Labor get in? Do you think... Because
Labor traditionally has been very good to artists, but they've also been very lazy to artists. I mean, the Australia Council, with all due respect. Yeah. Again, we were talking before about a club. Yeah. And about who gets money and who gets position entitlement. Mm-hmm. Having one organisation that's been 50 years in Sydney.
We've always been a very Sydney-centric country. When you talk about music, I mean,
it's rubbish.
Yeah, we are the music capital.
But it's rubbish.
I agree, it's rubbish.
I mean, what's the last great band that came out of Sydney? Thank you.
Yeah, well, not in recent times.
And where are all the major record companies?
Sydney. Yeah.
So that's silly. That doesn't make sense at all. Why don't they actually take Triple J and every 5 years they shift it to another place? They shift it to Melbourne, they shift it to Brisbane. Why can't they do that? Why can't they actually begin to soak in every single cities, and that's not even the country. Yeah. But why don't they have a festival? 1 week they're going to play that state's music. Yeah.
I saw an interesting thing on Facebook the other day which made me chortle. But it's true, that they say that the truth is often, they say that jest is behind so much truth. That they're saying national tour of Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane was considered what national tours are, and it's right. Now I know it's a bit hard to travel. We got the distance, but we don't do a lot of stuff on a national level, and yeah, as you said, we are very Sydney centric. Sydney people, thumb their nose up, for the most part here at Melbourne. But
we're south of the border. That's what they call us.
We're Mexicans.
Yeah, well, that's that's good for them, and I'm quite sure there's some very nice people in Sydney.
No doubt there are.
And Newcastle and Wollongong, and they're very high population. Yeah. But they've got no gigs as well, by the way. Yeah. Just in case you didn't know. Yeah. If they're that really interested in supporting live music, where are their gigs? Yeah. They don't care.
And those lockout laws didn't help the cause either, did they?
Well, we had them here, but, it had more to do with venues and, what they pay for security. There are a lot of, there's a lot of,
other things at play.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. There are a lot of weirdness going.
Listen, especially from Lady Lisa.
Hi, Lady Lisa.
Yeah. Hello, Lady Lisa. She's a very nice lady, by the way. Do you think reality shows have taken away from the role of PR and A&R and the discovery of good music?
Of course. Oh, PR, no, the role of PR. Promotions, no. It has actually increased the role of PR because PR now is spread, as we were saying, from the newspapers to the radio stations to all the rest of it. So PR has fanned out in terms of A&R to the, you would win your part in one of these reality TV show like The Voice, and the next morning you would be on the Triple M network or whoever network. TV, so that's an extended PR, which as a recording artist, if Dan Sultan released a record tomorrow, he wouldn't be on Triple M doing interviews, and how your mum cried, and none of that would be happening to him. It's a different thing. At the same time, he's got a career, and they're just going to be okay. Let's just do some maths here. Okay, so Idol. Now there's 27 idols throughout the world minimum. Yeah. They've been going 10 years.
10 years or more. Yeah.
Okay, that's 270 finalists a year. Yeah. By 10.
27.
Yeah, it's 100 now. Now what acts have they broken? Well, there's Kelly Clarkson, and then.
Kelly Clarkson.
Well, there's a handful of them. Yeah. It's for domestic. It actually destroys there's only so much money for A&R, right? And there's only so much, and that's usually discretionary, right? So the amount of money that major record companies elect to spend on A&R is devoted mostly to churning all these things, Yeah. In fact, you and I both know that, or perhaps you don't have, for instance, in terms of the finalists, the contracts say that the producers will, and this is a legal term, take into consideration the phone votes in determining the finalists. Take into consideration. Okay, that's one of the things that I read. Okay, when I thought, that's interesting. And then I thought, it's interesting that each finalist, each winner, none of them, there aren't two Sebastians. What's his name?
Guys,
there aren't two Guy Sebastians that have ever finalised. There aren't two. In fact, all of them are almost as if they're going, hey, we don't have an artist in this genre. Let's get an artist from this genre. And all the rest of all these other contestants are winnowed out. Oh, we don't have a guy who can sing in a high voice. Or we don't have an angry girl. Or we don't have a country sort of rock guy. Or we don't have this. Or we want a Jimmy Barnes. Or we want a that. Or we want a that. Isn't it interesting that all of them, none of them compete at all with one another? Yeah. How fantastic is the A&R that is Australian, as there is the Australian public? I'm so cynical about this.
Yeah, I can see.
I would tend to believe that, and I always pay attention. I watch the first 3 shows. I see the people that come to the trestle table the first few weeks, and I see, that person, that woman there, she's singing there. If someone actually spent some time with her, with A&R and artist development, and she got with Opitz, and they spent 3 to 6 months rehearsing and working, she would be a global talent. Yeah. And you know what? She's going to have today. They're going to crush her dreams, and she'll never record again, and that's the end of her career. Yeah. And that's the worst thing for me, when I see people that I perceive that have potential, but because they don't fit into this little box that they make, gone. Yeah. So forget about those shows. Yeah. If you want to understand how the system works in a certain mechanical sausage-making way, by all means watch it, by all means get involved with it. And it does employ grips, and it involves stage people and lighting people and studio people, and it does provide a tremendous amount of employment for Australian people. Yeah. But as far as an international exposure is concerned,
doesn't cut them.
Well, let alone here. I mean, as I said, poor Judah. Yeah. Well, I mean, has he worked? Did he work? I mean, I've been away. Is he doing anything?
What was that, sorry?
Judah, the finalist from whoever won The Voice.
Was he on Eurovision?
Eurovision, yeah.
Was that him?
Yeah, Eurovision, yeah.
Oh, no, Sony's got a lock on that. Interesting. If you look at every single person who's represented Australia through SBS, they're all Sony artists. Right. And they're all managed at PS by the same company, which is, I think, also owned by... Well, you should have a look. Check yourself. I'm not too sure about these things. I might be so cynical and wrong. And you go, oh, you're just cynical. But, okay, strip that away and look at the facts. Just look at the facts. And they go, and I say to you, original talents out there, don't worry about that. Do your thing, believe in yourself 100%. And don't believe your mum and don't believe your friends, because they'll always say they love you and that your music's fantastic.
Of course.
Just believe the harshest critics and evolve. And consider overseas markets. Our biggest successes in recent years have been people who've said to the Australian industry, middle finger up, and I'm out of here. I'm going overseas. Yeah. And they've worked their ass off to do it. The other, of course, great band to do that, of course, was AC/DC. They worked their ass off, gig after gig after gig after gig after gig. Yeah,
people forget that.
But you just got to do that. And even when you hit the wall, you just go, I'm going through the wall and I'm going to do more. Yeah. And find your market. Yeah. You can really easily find your market if you do your research properly.
What about management? Okay, so management's been a big part of your career, and I've always believed that management to me isn't a luxury.
It's not a popularity contest.
But again, I've been asked to manage, and I'm not a manager's ass, so I would not want to be a manager for all the Teen China. But I've always believed that rather than go for the big name, go for a John Watson, for example. People might, I want to get John Watson management, just as an example. I'm just throwing a name.
Yeah, a great example.
Yeah, as opposed to wouldn't you be better off just dealing with someone who, again, loves you and really is behind you, even though if you're not a big name manager, but if you're, again, if you love
someone
the
who
band,
deals you dope, for instance, someone who gives you grass or something.
well,
You used to deal your pot at
but
school.
No, but they're prepared.
No,
to,
no, I know. It's
they're prepared to do the work. You know, they're prepared to do.
Yeah, but invariably, it's if you have 5 disparate people and you've got one person who's got a mate who's really good, who's very loyal and loves. You know, the unfortunate thing is that person who becomes the manager is loyal to the mate. And then that's difficult because if you've got a group of 5 or 6, they're pro a group or a section and less prone to liking another section. Yeah. So I the passion, the commitment is 100, should be 100%. So it doesn't matter as a manager, you got to believe, unless it's a money gig, and you can do money gigs. You can be a business manager. Yeah. You can, in America, there's a personal manager, business manager, a tour manager. There's a whole range of 1,500 managers, right? And each, like Taylor Swift is got this management company, and everyone got, everyone has got something to do, and she runs it all, and the record company does what they're told, and they just tip her hat.
But don't you think it's still it's incumbent on artists, so still, or having a manager do all the work and so they can become creative? But I still think, I mean, look at someone like a Taylor Swift. She, again, I don't know her, I've never met her, but again, from what I can ascertain, she seems like someone though that can sit there and have an idea and be clued in. Lady Gaga, another example of that. So when you say that it's incumbent on artists though to still be clued in, so that then that they're conversing what's going on, that they can keep their management accountable. Because again, how many times do we hear the story of so many bands being successful, and yet it's usually bad management or management rip-off or bad decisions by management that usually is the demise of these bands, and and they end up in all kinds of trouble. So I think it's important. If I was an artist and I was having a manager, I would want to fucking know as much as I can learn, so that I can sit down with you, for example, and be able to fucking talk the talk with you and know what the fuck's going on.
It's all okay. Forget that's really good, and management's important. And Lady Gaga is an artist who it's very personal for her, and she's also a bit of a diva. Taylor Swift is like a corporate machine, an
Katy Perry, another one for you.
Katy Perry is also a little bit. She took a left turn with her music recently. And it's very actually. I didn't like the album to begin with. The more I'm getting into it, the more I think that she's so brave.
How much music do you listen to? Sorry.
All the time. I have 47 days worth of music on my 4 iPods. I've got 4 of them. So
is listening music to you not just a source of pleasure, but it's a source of
I do it all the time.
Homework?
Oh no, it's on. When I'm working, it's on. I've got music.
So how do you decide? What do you listen to? Like
I don't. Well, I'm not that committed to country music because or Bruce Springsteen type. I've never had a Chevy and I've never gone down a levee. Yeah. And I just don't get it. Yeah. I think the playing's great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Another thing is I'm not an African American urban black person. Yeah. So I don't. Although I can appreciate the beats and the sonic values and the poetry of what they're saying, it's not really. I've rock and roll and pop and classical music because my mother was a pianist in Vienna. So that's where I come from. So I've got shuffle. So it could be Wagner, it could be then hip hop, it could be
Sex Pistols,
it could whatever. And the thing and it could be new demos that I got, and I just put it all on there. And if I'm just working away and it's like a new demo, and suddenly I'm working and I'm like you, I'm very focused. It's got to be right at the front of your mind, whatever you're doing. But if I'm dragged away by something that I hear on the speakers coming at the back or coming at the side, then there must be something of worth there because it's the subconscious to me goes, hey, wake up, there's something, there's talent there. Hey, wake up. And then if it's really good, then I get this, just down here.
Yeah, the little tingle.
The tingle. Yeah, the tingle, and it's true. There's a tingle. The tingle down there. And I go, oh, that's really good. And then I listen to it.
Sorry
again,
about that,
and I start to. No, that's really good.
This is the budget of our props. Yeah. Hey.
People say, "Are you harmless?" And I say, "No, I'm harmless." So it's. I'm not even going to touch it.
Don't worry about it.
No. Look what I broke. Yeah. I broke this. I'm going to take this home. Yeah, I'm going to souvenir it for me. So I listen to that, and when I listen, once I get into that level, then it's sort of like level. Once I get into the whole song, then I get into I'm going to listen to it, and then I just listen to it maybe 7 times, and I get into the bass player, whoever the bass player is. I get into the vocals, I get into the backing vocals, the arrangement, the drummer, the hi-hat, because I used to be a drummer, a really bad drummer. Yeah. So I'm really into guitars.
I'm a great air drummer. It's about
yeah. Well, we all do it, and then my arm's gone out, so because of the hi-hat. So then I listen to it, and I become obsessed with it. That particular track.
Yeah.
I just love because I love music.
Yeah. I find the same thing. I lock onto an album, and I could play an album like 10, 12 fucking times in a row. It's just I'm still amazed at all the years I've been in music. I still have a passion. People ask me, because you work with it all day, do you still enjoy music for the sake of music? And the answer is fucking yes. Even though I can listening to it as a kid, obviously didn't understand the mechanics behind music and the production values, and I still enjoy the song for song, but I can still do it. I mean, I have a deep appreciation because I, again, understand how it's all put together, but I can still, I mean, the first Royal Blood album, for example, was one example of an album I'd listened to ad nauseum, and it still sounded fresh to me, and it still sounded exciting, and I still would pump it up, and and I'd still have. Did you see online? This great went viral. This video of this African American dude. It said American hip hop. Hip hopper listens to Rage Against the Machine for the first time. Now this is listening to Rage Against the Machine's first album 25 years after the fact. You should have a look at this fucking video of this. Now, assuming that it's real and this just hasn't been, all put together, it is fucking amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Watch the enthusiasm. It's childlike, That's
because the raw energy. Yeah. As you work in the studio. Look, the studio is a great place, but it's not like it's like a rehearsal studio is pretty funky and suddenly people go they capture. They were managed very rare to capture the energy and the fullness of sound and spirit, and that's the thing that permeates everything. Yeah, doesn't it?
I'll send you the link. You should check it out. It's absolute gold. And I remember I put a post. I said this is the reaction of his first time. I said I still lose my shit after how many times I've heard that album. It's one of my all-time desert classics. That one. That's
a good record.
Even I remember the first time I heard it.
Well, all bands have 2 albums. Yeah. Basically, unless you're the Beatles or the Stones, you've got basically 2 albums. Yeah. That's it.
Were you a Beatles or Stones man?
Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah. I just didn't get them. I mean, I appreciate what they did, and I get castigated for it by many, many people. How the fuck can you say you don't like the Beatles? How the fuck
I like them both, but the other one was a little bit, when you're growing up and you're expanding your universe, they expanded theirs. Yeah. Whereas the Stones, although the melodies and their lyrics and their energy were of a different nature, it was more linear. It was more linear. Even though they tried Satanic Majesties, they did try and they went to the studio and they heard what the Beatles were doing. Let's just try that. Yeah. But if you don't have the intellect and you don't have the companionship of someone like George Martin to do that, it's very hard when they're not on the same wavelength, almost like an embryonic babysitter. Yeah.
But I think it also means that you have to try to change your ways. I've always respected artists that just got to stay. This is why I like AC/DC, and I loved it when Black Ice was released and the journal was talking to Angus and saying, well, how do you feel about the fact that, this album is only, like the same album 17 times? Correction, it's actually 18th time, There's this pride of fact, reckon, we're a fucking 3-chord fucking blues / rock and roll band. It's what we do. It's what we do well. And we do it better than fucking anyone. And I admire that. I really admire a band that'll stay there. Although
I don't think they stay there. I mean, if you actually listen to, what was the Play Ball? Yeah. That song. And you listen to the relationship between the backing guitars and what each of them are playing and how different that is to the previous one. So they're actually creating.
But it's still unmistakably. There. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You put it on and you as opposed to a band that have a certain sound and then they go through some kind of reinvention and it's just like, oh wow, I didn't. Yeah. Oh, that's different.
But I think they do. All I'm saying is their juxtaposition of certain elements of their music, although from the outside doesn't look. It sounds all the same. For me, I can go, I see that's different. That's an interesting thing that they've decided to do there in the relationship between the instruments. But then I love that sort of anal stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as you do, because that's where you have homework. That's your house.
Okay.
Everything's about the business. Well, it's not called the music; it's called the music business. So get with the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. And profitability. You're not gonna survive if you don't make your own profit. Otherwise, you're a hobby. You're a hobbyist, as the tax department is so fond of telling you. You're a hobbyist. It seems like artists are looking at a product rather than...
It seems that, okay, from Helena, it seems like at the moment everything is about business and profitability. It seems like artists are looked at as a product rather than artists. If you're not business-minded, do you really stand a chance of making it in the industry?
That's the product is a reflexive thing. You don't make product, you make music. You make songs. But the reality is, unless it's the rare exception, you have to make a single that gets popular success, and it has to be about 3 minutes, 20 seconds in the key of A.
Yeah.
So if you know that that's what you've got to do, then, the Police, they delivered the album to A&M, and it wasn't Jerry, it was the president.
Blackwell?
Gil Friesen says to Sting, there's not a single on it. So he goes to McDonald's and he writes Every Breath You Take in 20 minutes because he had to write a song that was a hit, an undeniable hit, in 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Yeah. Now, no one's asking anyone to do that. I'm just saying, unfortunately, a hit single is a concession that an artist makes in order for the other 90% of their music to be heard. Yeah.
You talk about single. What is the album dead?
There are no albums anymore. They're just single tracks.
But you don't think so? The album's, as far as you're concerned, so it's dead. It's
not
gone
dead.
No,
it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still. If you want to make 12 songs that are about the platypus, about the life of the platypus, and it's a concept thing, that's fine. Yeah. And if it encapsulates a beginning and an end of your life or a period of time. And you were in, let's say, I'll give you an example, Split End's Time and Tide, okay? An old album, classic album, great album. They wrote it in one living environment that was near the water, and they saw boats every day. So it had a nautical theme. Yeah. So that period of their life, as the period of 12 or 15, and it's never 12 tracks or 10 tracks anyway. Yeah. It's probably 28 tracks. Yeah. But you ditched 7 because they weren't good enough. Yeah. 4 didn't work in the studio, and this is what's left. Yeah. So what is an album?
Collection of songs.
So, it's a single download, it's a single stream, whatever.
I think I think one of the reasons why the album's demise is just the way we listen to music. I mean, growing up, as you and I were growing up, I certainly remember primary entertainment source was listening to an album. Sitting down with your friends, we'd listen to an album, and that was our source. We didn't have anything else to choose from. We didn't have other distractions in our way. Come the
joint and a glass of wine.
Huh?
Had a joint and a glass of wine.
No, absolutely. Well, there was some embellishment.
There was a bit of a distraction.
Okay, no, but nonetheless, it wasn't an either-or scenario. No. Okay, no. You didn't smoke and have it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But again, the portability of music, MP3, and all of a sudden, people got 10 billion fucking songs on their portable device, and they say variety is the enemy of efficiency. I mean, it's the way we listen to. I think the way we listen to music, the way we consume music, and I think that's what's really primarily killed the album as it was. I mean, Dark Side of the Moon, for example, was a record that was conceived, I'm sure, and built to be a statement, a story, a narrative. Whereas these days, is there that same level of thought and premeditation, if you will? I don't think so.
It's but it can't be. It's the evolution. At that time, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have Xbox, you didn't have Netflix, you didn't have any of that. You had live and you had music, and you'd run out and get a double live white album, and you'd put it down and you'd lock the doors or whatever, and you'd listen to it, and you just sit there and listen to it. You didn't have anyone SMSing you didn't have people ringing, all of that. So what has music failed to do? Music has failed, unlike film or cable. It's failed to evolve into a necessity of life other than through marketing. Yeah. And so the record companies have failed. Yeah. In actual fact,
but a movie's not something like, it's a collection of scenes that's put together to make some sort of sense. You can't chop and change. You can't put shuffle play on a movie.
Let's say a movie it was released and you go and see it. Now a movie, there's a big fanfare and there's 15 shows about it, and then maybe it's like an Oliver Stone film, and therefore it's not only in the cinema section, but it's a political treatise. movies, or it's a sexual thing, and so therefore it goes into the entertainment thing, and then there's the people on the red carpet and the fashion and the whole thing. They've actually marketed here the personality. Paul Kelly is not a personality. He's not like a big US type of rock star person. He's supposed to be our poet laureate, our Dylan or whoever.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be our version, laughable. Our version of that, but does he have the same profile as his equivalent in England or America? No, he doesn't, because we don't market our artists that way. We don't have that social networking in terms of a publicist, someone who gets him to the red carpets and he's there with his nice little suit. He doesn't care for that stuff.
Yeah.
So our lead artists, our lead talent here have failed dismally in waving the flag of Australian music in all these other things like going to movie premieres and being seen and having, being in these magazines. We've just kept we're just nice in our studios. We don't do anything. And the funniest thing is that most of the stars that we have, whether it was Shirley and Skyhooks or you're talking about Bon Scott, what is the one thing that we have in our lead singers that others don't? And it's the larrikin. And what the larrikins don't sit at home.
Tim Rogers.
And well, we're talking about talent, not talent. Okay, so let's, we're talking about people who've got global.
You've been a bit rough on Tim, though. You don't think Tim
I
Rogers...
don't believe that you should go overseas and get shit-faced drunk and perform. I don't believe that you should take an opportunity. People says, how do you break overseas? Are you going to go overseas and then get real drunk in front of a foreign audience and then go, I'm just too big? You're going to be Jimmy Barnes or something,
it worked for Keith Moon and people like that. I mean, there are plenty of contemporaries who got pissed and fucked up and took drugs and were completely...
One is Keith effing Moon, and the other one is this Tim Rogers. One is a genius, talented, and the other one is a big fish in a small pond. And good luck to him, and I think he's tremendously talented. And, of course, he sold so many records overseas and had such a great career, and everyone wants him overseas. So all I'm saying is, okay, if you're going to get that opportunity going overseas, you don't go onto a Tonight Show and wreck the band area and get a bad reputation. That's not good for Australia. That's not good for Australian acts. Then Australian acts for next year don't get booked on that American TV
show. So why is it that some American bands can get away with it and do it, and why is
they're pigs and don't go and see them? They're pigs, don't go and see them. Hello, this is Sydney. It's not, it's Melbourne. Don't go and see them. For many years in the 70s and 80s, Australian was used as a sound check. People come down here and gave shit shows, and then they go overseas and improve themselves, and then go overseas and where the real money was, because we were the dumping ground for a lot of bands. Don't take it. And all the reviewers, the so-called reviewers, they weren't like NME or Variety or Hollywood Reporter or any of those magazines that were objective that would say, hey, that guy was shit. Like Brian Ferry, his first solo show, shit. Yeah. Absolute shit, but the age, what talent, what style, what fashion, those old hits, just forget it. Yeah. I'd rather people say to my band, you were shit. This is where you were shit. You were shit like this. The good bits were this, and this. Yeah. A balanced review, not I read the press release. I still want my tickets. The promoter won't give them to me unless I'm really nice. So all of these naive considerations people have. Yeah. So all I'm saying is that we really have to behave ourselves overseas and don't go over there as if the world owes us a living. That because I'm at South by Southwest, everybody must pay attention. There's a political pecking order, things you must do. You've got to promote yourself. You're working against major American record companies that are trying to break new talent for the summer tour, but early in March, April. Yeah. So that they get a big noise there, and then they go and support someone on the summer tour of the United States. There's a whole system going on. Yeah. Go find a market that loves your music. Yeah. For instance, if you're a heavy metal band, do you go to Nashville? Probably not.
No. Okay, I'd go Sweden, Norway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you actually think about where your music might work in terms of demographics, and you can find that information now on the internet, all that data, you can find that. That's part of the homework that you do.
Cost question, because I just want to
2,600 stations.
Okay, so Carl asked, what makes it so hard to break into the US? So let's try and get through this real quick if we can.
They don't want to play Australian any foreign music. Okay, so I'm an A&R guy, and I have to sign a band. And if I sign a good band and it's successful, I make lots more money because I'm on points. So it's in my interest. It helps my bottom line personally. Yeah. I'll get a sports car and a great thing if I sign the band and they're successful in America. Right. But if I take an Australian or a New Zealand or an Estonian
the incentive
band,
isn't there.
I don't get that percent. I don't get that thing. Okay. The guy over there who signed them, he gets all the credit. I get nothing, and I want to keep my job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two. America likes their own production. Their sonic profiling is almost racist in terms of sonics.
Yeah. How many times has happened to me where I master a record and it would go overseas and then say, look, they really like the sound of it. You know what? They really want to use their guy.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
Radio, CHR radio or AOR or whatever, has a certain sound to it. And so they want to use their guy. Yeah. Or in England, it's like the BBC. And so we need to use their guy because there's just nothing wrong with it, but there's just a certain thing that, and so many times those records I've done that just had
gets better. Great clip, but unless we spend $150,000 and shoot it with the Joshua trees, in America by this hot producer, this hot film director, it's not going to get played, and then the visual sides of it's gone, and it's gone, and we want to. And Nathan, here, head of BMG, comes to me and says, Nathan, you're in the building and I'm just doing stuff in New York. And he says, come upstairs and listen. We had You're the Voice, John Farnham. And I went, oh, yeah, that's a hit. That's a hit. Yeah. That's just a hit. Yeah. And I go, well, we've done 7 mixes and redone it. And I'm going, what for? Yeah. It's a hit. Oh, well, someone didn't like the bagpipes and the vocal. They thought that this. And I'm going, just release the thing that was a hit.
Yeah.
And they're going, but we think, and I'm going, why? Yeah. Why are you doing that? Why don't you test market it in Canada or do something like that? But why do you have to screw around with it? Oh, because if we don't touch it, we don't feel a sense of ownership. We don't feel a sense of control because we're the biggest market in the world.
Yeah.
Well, are they? Well, actually, if you remove America and you just have Germany, France, and Holland, they're just as big as England.
Yeah.
And how big a market do you want? Let's just start somewhere. Somewhere
and go from there.
Yeah.
Christine, how do you access European radio? Does it have the same payment, in inverted commas, system and links to record companies as the Australian, English, and American markets?
They're variables. You should look at smaller markets, and they're different. The thing about the European community, as you know from Brexit, is they've all got actual different ideas, but what they want to have is a united Europe. For instance, in France, you can there's, let's say, 4 Provence, it's the province, right? Yeah. You can actually have a hit in one province and then release another single, another one, and it's a hit as well. Yeah. They have a totally different mindset on how to go about that, right? But, so it's not I'm releasing a single everywhere. No, what single you go and say here's 10 tracks. Which one do you think will do well in your market? Who are you to tell Germany? Well, we released it in Australia, it was a big hit. Well, maybe there's something else on the album. It costs $2,000 or $3,000 to make a film clip. Just come on.
Yeah, one artist that comes to mind, I think, really used it well a long time ago before anyone. I think it was a bit of a pioneer, Tina Arena. I think she was a girl that really utilised that. Europe getting in there when escape
Australia and your husband, and then go to France and try and do it from the bottom up. Yeah. In fact, there's she did I believe a speech at Big Sound.
At Big Sound,
apparently it's particularly good. It makes me sound romantic, not cynical. Mm-hmm. She's quite.
I'd love to get her on the show. She's on my bucket list of people.
She's certainly a very talented, talented person.
Yeah.
And she always has talent. And she's also a very strong woman.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's nothing wrong. Yeah, but very bottom line, she got the voice of doom. Yeah. And she knows, she's suffered and she knows how to look. And the French also love her.
Yeah, they do.
And there's a certain passion, there's a certain thing in her, gravitas in her voice that very few Australian singers have who just play acoustic guitars and whine about, boyfriends and girlfriends.
Let's get one more question out before we have to wrap it up.
Really? I could be here for minutes.
We can stuff, but I just want to get this, because people are waiting, so I just want to,
No, it doesn't.
Please. So does a song need to be okay? So does a song need to be 100% polished, professionally mastered for it to be played on the radio? Do all elements of rawness?
No.
Do all elements of rawness need to be eliminated, and the song be basically fake for it to be considered?
Fake. What's fake? Fake means produced, overproduced, underproduced. The thing about it is, I'll tell you what. You play a song, just sit at a piano and play the song, and if it doesn't sound good on one instrument, don't bother. Don't go ahead. Because you can pile all the production on top of it, and you can get this, that, and the other. But if look at the tree. Look at the little branches of the tree. But what's the best element of the tree?
It's roots.
It's trunk.
Roots,
it's major branch. It's roots. So unless the basic melody, unless the basic structure and the vocal and the passion and the commitment are there in its most essential elements, don't bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother. Otherwise, Split Enz recorded a track called A Long White Cloud, which is like New Zealand, and it ran for 11 minutes, and it took 3 weeks to make, and it had 172 separate tracks to it that would bounce down, and they played it to me, and it's a piece of shit. Yeah. And it was eventually ended up like a B-side, but they were committed to it, and they were so obsessed with it, and they loved it. But to the people outside the studio, but mind you, they had the money to be able to do it, and good and great. And actually, I've thought now, and I listened to it the other day, and I thought, is this a nice piece of art? Yeah. But it's never going to hit the radio. Yeah. In fact, I dare to say it's never been played very much. Yeah. And I've seen the royalty statements, and APRA stuff. Yeah. I know it's not played at all. Yeah. So overproduced is terrible. If it works in a basic sense, less is more. If you don't have to put stuff on it, there are certain things that certain styles of music need. Yeah. And there's certain little tricks you can do to enhance.
Well, it worked for people like Mutt Lange, didn't it, in his career? Yeah. Production.
Keep it simple.
So, well, my friend, just before we go, what's one bit of advice you want to give to aspiring artists now who are trying to those who are looking to getting the foot in the door, or they're just starting out? So, what are the main things you'd want them to consider? Not in the legal sense, as we said before, but just what are things that they consider about moving forward who want to carve out careers themselves in music? What are probably 2 or 3 points?
Okay, the first thing is you never give up. You never give up.
Agreed.
You never give up and you never surrender. Never give up, never surrender. Never take no for an answer. Mind you, if enough people say no, well, you've got to reconsider. You've got to be open to people who are professional and people who you respect to provide a response. The other thing, too, is when you get a letter of rejection and it says, we're not into it this time, blah, 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 pay absolutely zero attention to it unless they actually put some form of objective criticism, like the chorus is a bit long, the vocals need to this. Unless someone's actually gone to the trouble of listening to it and actually made notes, tear it up. Yeah. Just don't pay any attention to it. Don't listen to the negativity that is just cut and paste. Yeah.
One of my great strategies for rejection letters when I was way much younger, which this guy called Gary Schuller told me. I'll give him full credit for this, but I did apply it, and it's amazing how it worked. But I would send rejection letters to people's rejection letter. So, for example, I'd send a letter back, wording exactly the same, but I'd replace the word demo application CV with rejection letter. Yep. Thank you for rejection letter. Unfortunately, we're unable to accept it. Next time we need a rejection, we'll put it on file, really, and we'll come all the best in the future. Yada, go fuck yourself. You know. So that was my strategy, and you'd be amazed that a few people did get back and did appreciate the humour. It didn't change the outcome, but nonetheless.
Well, it's a good response to. I think it's a good response, and it's good to be able to vent. The other thing too that I would also say is working with people like you and being a professional, working with the team. And that your team, an artist team, is the people who help them. It is their sound people. They're the noise boys. It's the lighting people. It's the people in the studio. That's your family. Yeah. You wouldn't shit on your family. Don't shit on your fellow musicians. Don't put the ego aside. It's a collab. If it's a solo artist, it's different. But if you're working with other people, just try and get the best out of everyone under any adverse circumstances possible. Try and do your best, because if you help them, they'll help you. Yeah. And it's a collaborative thing. So work with them, and they and your crew. They're your family. So they're your family. Then there are all these other people, and they're venue operators, and they're record companies, and they're publishers, and they're all these sorts of people. They're people you need to get on. So also be nice to them. Yeah. Give them bits and pieces. Yeah. Listen to what they have to say. Yeah. Keep your own counsel though, and be very firm about what you are. Yeah. But always be nice and be. One of the things that they like about Australian bands is if they say to the Australian band, as they did with us, go and sit for 4 hours in a room because you're not needed for the Grammy thing. Yeah. We will sit 4 hours in the room and we'll wait there. Yeah. We'll do as we're told. We're not going to get drunk and do stupid
Smash up the
things.
stage.
No. We're going to cooperate, and we're going to arrive early, and we're going to be professional.
Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah.
I always do a sound check. I always try and do a sound check and do it in an organised fashion.
Yeah. My last question before we go. We're going to get you back, man, because fuck, we could talk for all night, and there's so much.
No, no one wants that. Who would want that?
And well,
who would want that?
I do. I mean, I do this for me. This is my fucking pleasure.
It's gold. It's gold.
Well, I love it, mate.
Comedy gold.
I pay money out of my own pocket to do this fucking podcast, Nathan.
Do you? How much? How much?
It doesn't really matter. It's the point is.
There was a time. Mushroom's a sponsor.
No, they're not a sponsor. Well, we got no sponsors at the moment.
Thank God.
We don't. No, we got. No
I like it free.
I love doing this because this is my. There was a time I spent more fucking shoving shit up my nose than doing this, and I get so much more joy and pleasure to do.
I can't do that anymore.
No, I can't do it anymore.
I never did it anyway.
But nonetheless.
I've got too much energy. Yeah. Put it up your nose, and then suddenly you become morose.
One final question
Terribly
before.
morose.
Just one final question, if I may. How would you like to be remembered?
By my family.
Yeah.
And that I was a good father, and that I was a good husband.
Yeah.
That's
another fucking topic we talked about.
No, but I mean, look,
I think that's beautiful, and I think it's right. I think you're absolutely right.
And I helped some people.
I think that's probably a beautiful legacy to leave behind.
Well, those are the people. Like it's the band is your family too.
Yeah.
Why do you have to put? Why do you have to get rid of the drummer? Why? He's the guy at the back.
Yeah.
Why? What is it really necessary?
Well,
Ringo Starr isn't the best drummer in the world, but he was for the Beatles.
Yeah, he did all right.
So
he's still doing it. He's still doing it right.
Well, yeah, he is. Yeah. So anyway, Well,
Nathan Brenner.
Oh yeah, thanks.
What a fucking pleasure, man.
Yeah, it was good.
This has been a very.
Thank you.
We'll do this again.
That was really weird.
Yeah.
It was great. Thanks.
It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
No,
it was great.
No
we'll get you in real soon because again, you have a plethora of knowledge and it's great to hear again your opinions and your insights, and I think it's been very enlightening and certainly for me as well. Because
it's only because you forced me to take my shoes off.
Well,
this socks on socks on.
Yes, socks on.
In the studio, when you're in the studio, you have to take your shoes off, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, it
it's
feels,
a great feeling.
Well, it feels good. You relax. I think if you want to be creative, just be relaxed.
Just do it in the nude next time, and that'll be a full
embarrassment. Yeah. Well,
remember
Gaslight Records had the annual nude.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it was good.
That's what I mean. That's a marketing ploy that really worked because it was weird and wacky and was on up front page of the news.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to find something different here. Anyway. Yep. All right, then, mate. Thank you very much again, mate. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and thanks to all those who asked the questions. And I hope everyone got their stuff done. So thank you again to Backline Project, who without them this podcast would not be what it is. So thank you very much, guys. I'm going to be taking a 2-week self-imposed break. Not self-imposed, being imposed on me, but nonetheless, I'm going to take 2 weeks off the podcast. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time. So thank you very much, everyone. And as always, say please be nice to each other. But more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you fuckers. Have a good one. See you later. And that, my friend,